Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about administering a liquid oral medication to your VOKRA kitty. If you are administering a pill or a powder, that will be covered in another video. We're only talking about liquids in this one. Okay, so we use a lot of different liquid medications at VOKRA, whether it be metronidazole, azithromycin, Fenben. There are several medications we use very regularly. And there are two techniques that can be used to administer oral medications. The first one, which is administering with a syringe, is by far the more recommended method. Administering in the food, which is the second technique, I would not recommend. So let's go through the first one, talking about administering with a syringe. So obviously you will need a syringe. You will need your liquid medication. I have got azithromycin here. And you will need some tuna juice or some other sort of liquid tasty treat. You could do baby food, you could do the juice off of a tinned crab or some other tinned fish. It just has to be something extra special and tasty. So why is this important? A lot of our oral medications taste horrible. Metronidazole in particular is a really bitter, nasty tasting medication. What happens when you administer metronidazole is typically you'll see cats, you'll get it in their mouth, maybe you'll even get down their throat, and they start to gurgle it up and regurgitate it up. It kind of comes out in like a bubbly big mess. You make a mess everywhere. They spit up a lot of the medication, and it becomes impossible to know exactly how much of the medication they've gotten. So you are risking not giving them a full dose. For that reason, especially with metronidazole, I always recommend using tuna juice. Okay, so grab your syringe, grab your tuna juice, and grab your medication. I'm actually going to be subbing the medication for water today because my cats don't need any medications at the moment. So lucky them, they get tuna juice and water. So I start by drying up a bit of the tuna juice. And what's very important here is draw it up to a marker that's specific. So I've drawn up to exactly 0.1 mLs here. Oh, I've got a little bubble there. Be mindful of that. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so I've drawn up to exactly 0.1 ml. The reason why it's important to know how much tuna juice you've drawn up initially is because once you drop the medication, you need to be able to know how much medication you're giving. So let's say I need to give 0.3 ml of the medication. I already have 0.1 in here. 0.1 plus 0.3 is 0.4. So 0.1 in here, I'm going to add 0.3. I'm going to draw it up to the marker that says 0.4. Great. And then let's finish it off with a little bit more tuna juice. At this point, we already have a distinct amount of the medication in here, so it doesn't matter how much more tuna juice you add on. Does that make sense? Just a little note here. I'm using a 1 ml syringe. If your dose is under a ml, we need to be very accurate. So accurate to the second decimal place. So let's say 0.15. If you're doing a larger dose, it doesn't have to be as accurate. Then you'll do to the first decimal point. So let's say 1.5, if that makes sense. Okay, so I've got it all drawn up in the syringe. Let me bring my victim over. Stow! Stow! Here he comes. All right, come on up, kiddo. Yeah, come on up. Good boy. Okay. I know. You're a very good boy. Okay, so anytime you are doing anything to a cat's face, I would recommend sticking their booty against you, because as soon as you start doing stuff to their face, they're going to start backing up. You can hold their face with one hand and administer with the other hand, but if they're backing up, you're not going to be able to do anything. So by putting your body in the way, you can kind of use your body to make sure that they're not going backwards at all. You can use this technique anytime you're doing eye meds, ear meds, anything else. Okay, so cats have a little gap behind their canine tooth here, right there. It's a little hole, and you can use that to your advantage because you can stick, oh, here comes the other cat. Thank you. Oh boy. All right. So as I was saying, you can stick the syringe behind that canine tooth and you've got a perfect little entry into their mouth. Some things to be aware of here. Number one, you don't want to shove it down their throat. You don't want them to aspirate. We're doing just small amounts right into their mouth. That's another reason why the tuna juice is nice, because they're going to definitely taste it. And another note, I would not do more than 0.5 milliliters at a time. If you have, let's say, 1 milliliter to do, I would do it in 2 sessions, maybe 3. So let's split this up in 2. So squirt. There we go. That was the first amount. And he really does not mind. He thought that was quite enjoyable because it tasted like tuna juice and water. Okay, and now let's do the second squirt. You don't need to take that long of a pause in between, just enough for them to be able to swallow it, so you know they're not going to choke on it. And see, that wasn't really so bad. Let's give him one more squirt of just the tuna juice because he was a very good model today. Yeah, if you've got little foster kittens at home, little babies, I would recommend also just taking tuna juice in a syringe and practicing with them. Number one, you'll get the practice, and number two, they won't be syringe shy. This little guy was a bottle feeder, and I've been doing giving him little amounts of tuna juice from a syringe for a while, so he's definitely used to it. If you are giving meds to your foster kitty and it's not as easy as it was with him, please don't worry. This guy's an old veteran of getting oral meds. Okay, so to summarize, make sure you're using tuna juice. You don't want them to spit it all back up at you. Please make sure you're using small amounts and you're not injecting it down their throat. You don't want them to aspirate and choke. And yeah, that's my summary. Okay, let's move on to the second technique, which would be putting it in their food. If you're going to be doing this technique, I would not recommend putting it in their regular meal. It has to be something extra special to make sure they eat it. Especially metronidazole, I wouldn't even bother putting it in their food because they probably won't want to eat it. Unless the cat is extremely food motivated, they're not going to want to have anything to do with the metronidazole coating their food. So I personally wouldn't bother then. Why is this technique not recommended? Unless the cat eats every last bit of the food and licks it up off of the plate, you have no way of knowing if they've got an entire dose. So you really risk underdosing the cat in this scenario. And again, the other reason that I said is that they probably won't want to eat it because it will taste like the oral med. And lastly, it's wasteful. It is a little bit of a waste of the medication if you mix it in their food and they don't eat it. There's no way for us to remove the medication from the food, obviously. Okay, if you are going to do this, I'm going to be using tuna. Another thing that's really popular is baby food, the Gerber's chicken baby food. We've got a lot at Ops. Very, very tasty for the cats. You could also use crab meat. Some very popular food brands like Waruva or BFF. Those are extremely popular. Whatever you choose to use, it's critical that you do not use too much. This is a tiny treat. It is not an entire meal. You want to use enough so that it's not a concentrated amount of the medication, but I've seen people just pile on the tuna and then they're not going to eat it all. I recommend doing about a teaspoon. If you're using a lot of the medication, maybe 2 teaspoons. But really, this is all you need to be able to get the cat to eat it. And then let's take our medication. So once again, I'm drying up 0.3, injecting it in. Let's mix it up. So only use this technique if you are sure that the cat's going to eat all of it. That's the critical thing. If the cat is feral and you're not able to inject the medication directly in their mouth, I would do this. But again, you need to make sure they're food motivated. Otherwise, you're just going to be ruining the medication. Okay, so this is just water and the tuna. But if you guys want a little example, there you go. He's none the wiser that we've put some water in his tuna. Yeah, mister? Okay, so to summarize, 2 main techniques for administering oral medications. So that would be injected with a syringe, which is by far the recommended method, or mixing it in their food, which I would do if the cat is feral. or if you have a particularly food motivated cat that you know that they're going to eat every single last bit, like Walter is right here. If you're having any difficulties at all administering these medications, please contact your foster coordinator and we can help you. There's different little things and tips and tricks that we can work through with your kitty. Just keep in contact because we know that you guys know your foster kitty best. And if you have any questions, please send us a message. All the best, guys. Thanks.